Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Gyro. I feel like I have rather undeservingly bashed Blood Death Knights lately in all my reviews of preferred tanks versus not preferred tanks and all of my beginner-friendly kind of guides for people returning to Dragonflight and perhaps trying new tanks. Yeah. So today I thought that I'm going to correct myself after having spent some time with my Blood Death Knight alt, my alt number 55 billion plus. Yes, I have lots of them. So today I am offering to you my usual very beginner friendly, unpretentious, not pretending to be an expert guide for Blood Death Knights. So if this is your cup of tea and you're interested in this, very excited to offer you this little video. Please give me a like because that's your main way of telling me that I'm doing something right. And let's focus on building our very simplistic Blood Death Knight. Alright, so the most important thing about Blood Death Knight, and something that I was failing at before and what prevented me from understanding this class. There are two defensive mechanics that Blood Death Knights have. They have almost nothing passive. Yes, sure, they have armor, they have parry, they have some other kind of things that prevent you from being completely one-shot like a squishy, but at the same time, in the dungeon environment, you will be one-shot if you are not properly understanding those two mechanics. Blood Death Knights have Bone Shield, and Blood Death Knights have Blood Shield. Two shields, essentially. Yep. In order for you not to be one shot, and in order for you to run into a group and not just die instantly, yeah, you need to generate those bone shields on yourself, essentially. That's it. That's your main thing. How do we do that? Well, there is a specific talent which I do not understand why this talent is not a baseline ability. You need to take this talent in your tree of talents, which of course, as always, I will offer you my build in the description below. It's called Death's Caress. Death's Caress only costs 1 rune, and Death's Caress generates 2 charges of your bone shield. Bone Shield is a defensive mechanic that increases your armor, and with some other talents put into this, it also gives you haste. So so it increases your haste if you took improved Bone Shield, which you should. So essentially, you will swing faster, which is very much required when you are swinging a big two-hander. And also there is a Foul Bulwark, which for each charge of Bone Shield, it will increase your maximum health by 1. So if you're scraping for a little bit of extra health, this is actually not too bad, and it gives you in total at maximum, it gives you 10% of extra health. It's not too bad. So our priority always is that Death's Caress. We need to, first of all, take that talent. Second of all, map it to a key that is very easy. It's going to be your first and bread and butter thing that you do. You throw Death's Caress. It's a ranged pool as well. It works as a ranged attention of the mobs kind of pool, not a physical pool. And it generates the charges of Bone Shield, making sure that you will not die instantly. What do you do next? Next, you do Marrow Rend. Marrow Rend is a second ability which gives you 3 charges of Bone Shield. Does a little bit of damage, not a little bit, actually substantial damage to the target. Surrounds you with that barrier of whirring bones, increasing your haste through that talent that I've just shown you, and increasing your armor. Each melee attack against you consumes a charge. That's what you have to understand. So you need to keep track, which we will go to next, and I will show you how to do it. You need to keep track of that Bone Shield, and if you want to live, essentially make sure that Bone Shield is on you. So you are going to be doing the Death's Caress to pull, and you are going to follow it up with Marrow Rend, and then track your shield. Additionally to that, you have some cooldowns, some defensive / offensive cooldowns. You have Dancing Rune Weapon, which is a very nice thing, which essentially mirrors your melee attacks and bolsters your parry quite massively as well. If you take Insatiable Blade passive, which you should take absolutely, Dancing Rune Weapon will also generate 5 Bone Shield charges instantly. So you are going to basically not always use this on cooldown. At least I do not use this on cooldown, but you're going to use it on big pools, and when you want a little bit of extra damage, perhaps when you want a little bit of extra of those defenses for 8 seconds, and that's what you're going to do. You also might want to take Everlasting Bond, which summons an additional copy of Dancing Rune Weapon. Please, Blood Death Knight experts, which I don't pretend to be, please correct me and tell me, because it doesn't explicitly tell us that the second copy of Dancing Rune weapon, does it boost effectively then your parry chance to 80%, or does your parry chance stay at 40? My very quick test suggests, and I had this talent before, my very quick test suggests that your parry chance stays at 40. But I could be mistaken because I was tracking and looking at a lot of things, and like I already said, I'm not an expert. I'm just trying to rebroadcast basics here. But you might want to do this because the duration of Dancing Rune weapon then is increased by 8 seconds. So that means it's basically active for longer, your parry is longer, and yeah, you live longer, essentially. So Dancing Rune weapon is a very, very good thing as well. Another thing which is fantastic, offensive/defensive/crowd control, probably the best ability among melee classes. I'm going to limit it to melee classes in the whole game. Ready for it? It is the Slappy Hand Abomination Limb, of course. It's another cooldown, not a massive cooldown, 2 minutes is alright. It sprouts an additional limb, does a massive this time amount of damage over 12 seconds to all nearby enemies, and it also pulls enemies to you. If you want to, for example, run through that annoying dungeon of Shattered Halls where you need to keep running and a lot of mobs are spawning and they keep running to your group and you want to drag them along. So that is offensive, obviously, crowd control-y, and additionally it also generates 3 bone shield charges instantly out of nowhere. So that is another thing for you to be aware of. Bone shield, and bone shield again, my friends, through lots of different abilities. And that, believe it or not, that is kinda like the staple thing. If you do that, you already are off to the races with the Blood Death Knight. I always knew about Bone Shield, but I kind of underestimated just how important it is to track and to make sure that all of these abilities are properly timed and properly work together in order to make sure that you are living, you continue living. All I was focused on before is regeneration of health, are things that are giving you health back, because we certainly have this right hand side here of the whole tree, which I'm not going to waste more time on, and that is giving you more health. It heals you, you know, and bloodworms and other kind of stuff. So you can take a look at that more closely. I'm just kind of being mindful here of your time to keep ranting on and on and on. And there are lots of other very useful, very cool Death Knight specific talents, such as, for example, Will of Necropolis, which simply and plainly reduces the damage by 35% if you are below 30% of your health. That is kind of when things become dicey, but believe it or not, with Blood Death Knights, what happens occasionally is that you experience spikes. I think Blood Death Knight experience, the playstyle experience, is especially going to be very, very jarring for someone who, let's say, was playing a monk for a long time, because you know how monks, they are smoothing out that incoming damage with the mechanic called stagger. So Blood Death Knight is a very different beast altogether. It's not preventing all damage, but it's not out healing all damage. It's kind of somewhere weirdly in between. So it has those spikes, and you need to kind of mentally be prepared for that. With that being said, I still believe that, for example, my main criticism of Blood Death Knights has been always that they're very, 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 very slow. Well, they are not super fast, but at the same time, I do believe that during several redesigns of the class that have been happening over time, and from what I remember in the past, I do think that mobility of the class has increased substantially enough for me to say that it is actually rather fun, rather pleasant to play. It actually is. It's definitely not. It doesn't feel too slow. I'll be honest with you. It doesn't feel too slow. So, for example, talents such as Death's Echo, it is giving your Death's Advance an extra charge. So it's kind of similar to Paladin's Horsey. It gives you an extra charge, it allows you to speed up. Talents like March of Darkness, they even give Death's Advance an additional 25% movement burst increase, speed burst increase for the first 3 seconds. So that's not too bad. Blood Death Knights are actually quite enjoyable. Why I said that it's undeserving my bash? because I was criticizing their speed. Well, I have just right now leveled basically one of the alts through the time walking event that's been happening this week in Dragonflight. I enjoyed it as well. I found the class being much faster than I remember it to be. I found the bone shield mechanic, once it's properly tracked, very, very properly working, very nice. And then of course I did mention blood shield. Don't think that I forgot about it. Blood shield is another defensive and health back thing that comes from death strike. You are death striking, healing yourself back, and generating the blood shield through the passive ability, which we're going to see right now, and it's called Blood Shield. So each time you heal yourself with Death Strike, which you'll be doing all the time, you gain, depending on your mastery level. I don't gain much because it's a poorly geared fresh 70 character. You gain a shield, you know, to absorb physical damage. Only physical damage, unfortunately, but on a relatively low cooldown you have anti-magic shell, which should be also your best friend, that absorbs a massive amount of magic damage. So you will be playing kind of between these things. And that's it, my friends, as far as the playstyle is concerned. And yes, I did promise to you how we're going to be tracking this. We are going to be tracking this with my favorite WeakAuras. Of course, you can download very pretty WeakAuras from the WoW website. Just Google for it. But I make my own WeakAuras. First of all, I find it a little bit fun to tinker around with WeakAuras. Second of all, I like simplicity, and my WeakAuras look like this. Let's take a closer look at them. Do not worry about the other ones that are showing up right now. We are going to take a look at my Blood Death Knight group. Here is what I've done. I created this myself, and I'm more than happy to share this with you as well if you would like something so simplistic. Yeah, I make no apologies for keeping it so simplistic. I like it. I'm tracking Blood Shield. Blood Shield is there popping up every time I do Death Strike for short periods of time. I am tracking Bone Shield duration, because if all Bone Shield charges are not consumed, it will last for maximum of 30 seconds. So you want to see it anyway. Well, I prefer to see it anyway. Front and center, heads up display style. I know it's not everyone's thing, but it is my thing. And then you will ask me, Gyro, why do you have two icons of Blood Shield here above your character frame and in line with the Bone Shield and Blood Shield progress bars? Well, you probably will guess it, because I like to have useful information wherever my line of sight is. And occasionally, because I'm not an expert and because I play lots of classes, it's not like I only play Death Knight and I know it kind of just so well that I don't need any buttons on the screen. So occasionally my eye goes down to the action bar, not to really see what to click next. I think it's more of a habit. So when my eye goes down and when it looks kind of in the area of this progress bars and Bone Shield and Blood Shield, that is where I find it useful to also have an icon that shows to me how many specifically charges. That's the main information I'm after. I already am getting the duration information, but I'm looking for charges information here in the corner. But in the other moments of time, and I know it's kind of close and probably it's excessive, so nobody's stopping you from deleting one of these extra icons from the group if you want to. Just press right click and remove, you know. But in some cases I focus on the literal line of sight, where my normal line of sight is, where I fight enemies here in the center, and that is where I almost don't go down here visually. I don't look down there and focus on it. I almost just keep my eye around here, and that's why I duplicate the information and I look here at this particular icon, which is literally just a duplicate of this one. That is simply my approach. Call it a special accessibility. I don't have any particular visual impairment or whatever, but perhaps it would also help people who would like an extra visual cue. That's how I play. You're most welcome to my aura if you like simplicity and if you think that that is not excessive but actually is helpful. You're most welcome. Classes such as Brewmaster with their stagger, such as Death Knight that relies very heavily on Bone Shield and Blood Shield to survive, they absolutely require this extra addition. So that's where it's not completely bare bones, I suppose. I agree with that. There are extra flashing things in the middle of the screen, but you kind of need it. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree or disagree with me. But overall, this is it, my friends. I just wanted to very quickly share with you my rediscovery of Blood Death Knights. I quite enjoyed it. I can recommend the class. Yes, it does affect my overall judgment on which tanks I would recommend to play, including to beginners in this simplified way. You're most welcome to my UI, you're most welcome to my talents below, and I would only ask in return for your little like, because I want my videos to be seen by more people, and subscribe if you haven't, if you haven't subscribed already. We are a very friendly club of beginner and casual players of World of Warcraft, and similar guides to this one are coming out all the time. Thanks again. Talk to you soon about something else Dragonflight related, and goodbye for now.